The moment the laser cutter finally bit through the ice's final layer, the silence shattered. A low, mechanical heartbeat began to echo in the pitch-black tunnel, 7 deliberate thumps that reverberated off the frost-coated walls. Each pulse grew stronger, as if something massive and slumbering stirred deep beneath the glacier. Frost cracked under unseen footsteps, and the temperature plunged further, carrying with it the promise of revelations darker than the endless night above. Today, we crack open one of the coldest and most classified mysteries on Earth, the Antarctic underground. We're talking covert digs beneath half a kilometer of ice, pulse-perfect tremors that aren't natural, and vanished scientists who whispered of resonance engines and alien glyphs. From top-secret codenames to redacted funding logs, this is more than frozen folklorites, a ticking time bomb buried in the ice. Why do 3 independent projects all zero in on the same hidden chamber? And what happens when you push the ice just a bit too far? Strap on your parka and your skepticism, because frostbite is the least of our worries. Hit subscribe and stay tuned. The ice is shifting, and the truth is waiting beneath the whistling howl of Antarctic gales. An unmarked cargo plane touched down at a makeshift landing strip carved into the ice. Its engines fell silent, but the hum of unseen machinery pulsed through the frozen air. Technicians in burly parkas whispered of Project Deep Resonance, a black-budget initiative said to probe the solid heart of the continent. When the plane vanished from radar 30 seconds later, only the echo of its approach remained a ghost in the satellite feed. A week later, climate scientists monitoring ice shelf retreat detected a signal buried deep within seismic readings, a rhythmic thrum 1,200 meters below the surface. It matched no known natural phenomenon in the dark CCTV of a mothballed research outpost. Lights flickered in corridors long since abandoned. Screens displayed locked files dated December 1987, Operation Snowfall. Archives spoke of Antarctic anomalies suppressed by military contractors, but few believed such sites existed. Until now, these buried facilities, hidden beneath kilometers of ice, were rumored to house alien artifacts, weapons tests, and protoviral agents stolen from thawing permafrost. HAARP-like transmitters, relocated under the codename Aurora Echo, lay buried, capable of manipulating ionospheric currents from the polar plateau. DARPA scientists, under oath of silence, claimed to have witnessed electromagnetic pulses rising through fissures in the Taylor Glacier. Their reports vanished into classified vaults. Dr. Elena Kirov was the first to break the silence. A glaciologist turned whistleblower, she fled McMurdo Station with encrypted data. Her field logs detailed seismic detonations at Site WK-14, labeled entrance excavation. Footage she smuggled out showed a cavern of blue ice, etched with symbols that predated modern cartography. She disappeared en route to Paramaribo. Her digital recorder wiped clean. Only the battery pack remained, stamped with a serial number linking it to DARPA's Sub-Zero studies. At the core of this labyrinth stood a single freestanding door of unknown alloy, welded directly into living ice. Surveillance logs captured brief power surges 14 in 12 hours, short-circuiting thermal cameras. In flickering infrared, silhouette figures armed with experimental scanners moved in and out. Their targets, crystalline formations forming anomalous magnetic fields. Meanwhile, in Washington, a clandestine committee monitored unrest in Buenos Aires. Rumors of a plutonium cache flown from Belgrano to station Argentine intelligence intercepted a chain of satellite uplinks referencing Operation Crystal. dawn. US operatives denied involvement, but fissure files later revealed covert transfers of enriched isotopes to Antarctic labs under cover of scientific exchange. Objectives remained classified, but financial ledgers showed payments to Shell, companies tied to the Pentagon's Research and Development Directorate. Jamal Asadi, a former SIGINT analyst for the NSA, decoded fragments of those uplinks. He spoke of audio distortions, voices speaking in Russian and Mandarin, layered over static. They warned of awakening to something older than civilization. He testified to a clandestine news outlet. A month later, his apartment was raided, all digital devices confiscated. His final message, sent via burner phone, contained only coordinates 8 to S, 170E. In the months that followed, satellite imagery captured circular depressions in the Ross ice shelf, each perfectly equidistant, forming a geoglyph hidden in the shifting ice. Conspiracy theorists pointed to DUMB, deep underground military bases, networks speculative, bunkers intended to survive global cataclysms. Documentary leaks suggested these cavities connected to subterranean caverns carved by heavy bore drills. 2 house laboratories testing bioengineered organisms adapted to sub-zero environments. Yet the purpose remained obscured. Some whispered of a meridian array, designed to channel seismic energy into focused beams, territorial weapons to destabilize ice sheets or even trigger localized tsunamis. Others claimed the true target was paleobiological, reviving long-extinct species entombed for millennia. In faded logbooks from Shackleton's original expedition, scribbles mention ancient life signs detected in core samples entries, redacted by Imperial Command. When the temperature sensors at the Hidden Valley Station spiked inexplicably by 12 degrees Celsius in a single hour, sealed hatch protocols activated. Pressure valves hissed, venting into the twilight of the endless plain. Operators recorded tremors resonating through their helmets. They called it the Day of Whispers. Their encrypted messages ended abruptly. No distress call ever reached the surface. Deep within the ice, behind the reinforced door, something ancient stirred its heartbeat, measured by equipment far too sensitive for human use. And somewhere, in the labyrinth of archives and secret channels, the real question awaited: what had they uncovered down there, so vital that entire nations conspired to bury the truth beneath miles of ice? As researchers pieced together fragmentary evidence, they realized the deadliest revelations were never meant for light. Beneath the shifting twilight of the polar plateau, a Soviet-era research outpost facility, Vostoku awoke from its slumber. Steel doors groaned as automated drills bored through the ice, carving a precise tunnel toward a cavern mapped only in Cold War intelligence dossiers. Glinting through the borehole, ancient machinery lay entombed, pressure chambers once used for deep-sea simulation, repurposed to withstand subglacial pressures. In the murk, cables pulsed with dormant power. Colonel Sergei Morozov, a retired Spetsnaz officer turned defector, spoke of his role in Project Glacial Echo. He claimed to have overseen experiments on bioengineered microbes drawn from Lake Vostok's Depsa freshwater reservoir sealed for 15 million years. When thawed, these organisms exhibited properties of extreme catechesis, capable of breaking down hydrocarbons into elemental gases. Morozov warned the microbes were unstable, prone to rapid mutation under electromagnetic fields. His warnings died with him in a Swedish safe house found heart-stopped eyes wide in terror. In Zurich, an anonymous collective of hackers, calling themselves the Aurora Consortium, released partial blueprints for a device codenamed Polaris Beacon. The schematic showed an array of superconducting rings calibrated to amplify the Earth's geomagnetic lines. Embedded in those rings were crystalline shards recovered from under domed sea, shining with an internal iridescence. Audio unearthed with the leak featured a fragment of a decoded transmission, a child's lullaby, played backward, instructing instruments to open the gates. At Pine Gap and Pine Island, satellite arrays once tracking weather balloons now intercepted clandestine beacons emanating from Antarctica. Data analysts traced the signals to a rotating platform known as Site Omega's circular antenna joint unionized into the ice sheet. Footage recovered under FOIA displayed massive turbines spinning beneath a transparent ice dome. Shadowy figures in radiation suits assembled a cylindrical capsule stamped Specimen 0472. Metallic clangs echoed through the vault. Dr. Adrian Castillo, a virologist subpoenaed by a Senate committee, testified to seeing viral vectors engineered to tolerate sub-zero temperatures to potentially infect only individuals with a rare genetic marker. They sought a delivery method, he said, voice trembling. A virus activated by thawing, spreading as the ice melted. Surveillance tapes from McMurdo's archival wing showed redacted labels: MK Culture Redux, Project Aurora, Borealis, Bioweather. Meanwhile, climate data from the British Antarctic Survey recorded inexplicable heat signatures along the Transantarctic Mountains. Instruments registered magma-like plumes, unaccounted for on geological maps. Geologists speculated on ancient volcanic fissures reawakening. Conspiracy theorists saw evidence of subterranean reactors, nuclear piles buried to avoid detection. Aerial drones sent to investigate lost contact halfway through their mission, their last images shattered into static. In the abandoned corridors of Little America V, black market operatives traded vials of blue-hued liquid, presumed culture medium for resurrected A Venezuelan cartel brokered the sale to private military contractors, eager to weaponize the microbes for operations in arid climates. An intercepted shipment bound for the Horn of Africa was rerouted at sea. Sailors reported the containers, contents humming with a life of its own. Against this backdrop of escalating stakes, an encrypted document surfaced on the dark web. Its header reads simply, Genesis Protocol Antarctic Archive. Within, a timeline stitched together events from Admiral Byrd's Operation Headjump to the test blasts of Operation Obelisk in 1962. Footnotes referenced interviews with Admiral Richard E. Byrd, claiming he encountered structures beneath the ice older than the oldest pyramid. The document ended with coordinates 7,808 S, 10,658 E.98 AC, a rocky outcrop rumored to conceal a heavily barred hatch. In Rome, Vatican insiders confirmed the dispatch of a secret commission after Pope Pius XII received reports of anomalous energy readings over the South Pole. The Commission's findings were sealed in the Vatican secret archives, under references to angelic fire and demonic resonance. Conspiracy theorists merged the lore of the Ark of the Covenant with subterranean Antarctic vaults, claiming relics of primordial religions slumbered beneath the ice. As global powers jockeyed for control of these buried wonders, the ice itself rebelled. In early May 2025, satellites recorded a series of shallow quakes, a swarm of tremors rippling outward from the polar plateau. Explosions of supercooled steam erupted through ancient vents, carving fissures that exposed vast chambers of crystalline ice. Within those fractures lay metallic structures, artifacts of unknown origin, half swallowed by frost. And so, with half the world blinded by political brinksmanship, and the other half lost to digital disinformation. The true heart of the iceberg remained hidden. Beneath layers of secrecy, beneath layers of ice, something older than humanity stirred once more. The next tremor loomed, carrying with it the promise of revelation or the threat of global cataclysm. Dr. Naomi Weiss's deep penetration probe descended through the yawning crevasse, its lights cutting swaths in the cobalt darkness. Temperature, sensors snagged on the walls, registered a sudden drop, minus 98 degrees Celsius before, spiking inexplicably into the positive range. Video feed glitched, warping crystalline ice into shifting shapes, half-forgotten alphabets etched in frost. Then the feed died. Weiss's last log entry, transmitted in fragments, spoke of a pulsing core of unknown origin, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Meanwhile, an RCAF geomagnetics unit stationed at Dome Fuji detected a surge in low-frequency emissions. Their equipment, built to monitor solar storms, began charting patterns reminiscent of neural activity. Lieutenant Marcus DuPont, reviewing the data, muttered, "It's thinking." Behind him, the aurora borealis writhed in unnatural hues, rippling in concert with the readings. Hours later, DuPont vanished last, seen boarding a military transport, bound for Punta Arenas, his destination classified as top secret, eyes only. At the University of Cape Town, Professor Lindu Anyati cross-referenced satellite heat maps with thermal anomalies recorded by Russian glaciologists. She discovered a hidden nexus beneath the Gambatsov subglacial mountains, where seismic arrays picked up distinct echoes every 9 minutes. Niathi's algorithm, trained to filter out background noise, isolated what she called the hollow tone, a resonance matching neither rock nor water. When she presented her findings at the World Geophysical Congress, she was met with polite applause and a subsequent letter from an unnamed embassy demanding her raw data. Deep in the network of abandoned NORAP bunkers, a classified AI known as Octave stirred. Programmed during the 1980s for global threat assessment, Octave had been mothballed after its predictions too precise, to alarmist-triggered panic in Pentagon backchannels. Recently reactivated by an off-book contractor, Octave's core processors hummed in the cold darkness of an underground silo. Logs revealed Octave had integrated new geospatial feeds from Antarctica and its latest conclusion. Existential anomaly detected. Containment breach imminent. Back on the ice, a multinational task force led by Admiral Lucia Herrera decorated Antarctic veteran established base Meridian at 75S 113W. Their objective, locate the source of the hollow tone and secure any foreign installations. On the first night, Herrera's comms officer intercepted a digital transmission in an extinct dialect of Inuktitut, repeating the phrase, "They are not sleeping." The voice, modulated beyond human range, repeated the warning 10 times before. The signal cut out, leaving static that sounded eerily like breathing. In Geneva, analysts at the UN's Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space convened an emergency session. Satellite imagery of the fissures and subterranean structures was screened behind closed doors. Delegates whispered of a joint statement, condemning unauthorized military activity under the guise of scientific research. But the session dissolved into silence when Ambassador Sharif Al-Mansur produced a fragment of audio and intercepted conversation in Mandarin and Farsi, discussing the day of reckoning scheduled for no later than September 2025. As summer's midnight sun thawed the upper ice layers, field teams encountered a series of monolithic arches carved directly into granite outcrops at Point Nunatak, Under portable lights, the arches glowed with an inner luminescence, veins of crystalline material pulsing like veins of a living organism. Dr. Weiss's probe, reactivated remotely, transmitted 3D scans revealing interior chambers lined with metal plating unknown to any terrestrial alloy database. The most chilling discovery, a low hum, resonating at 7.83 Hz, the so-called Schumann resonance, samplified into a tone loud enough to induce vertigo in researchers. Then the attacks began. 2 4x4 convoys en route to Meridian Base disappeared without a trace. Satellite trackers showed them entering a zone of electromagnetic interference before pinging off the grid. Search drones, sent to locate the wreckage, returned images distorted, overlaid with fleeting silhouettes that vanished upon closer inspection. The final drone lost power mid-flight, its last transmission a jagged, static-laced image of something moving beneath the ice, too dark and too large to identify. At the edge of the world, eyes turned skyward as the aurora corona flared in violent pulses, synchronized with the hollow tone's ninth echo. A collective breath was drawn across continents, as if the earth itself braced for impact. And in that moment, the hidden door beneath the ice quivered, its seal fracturing under forces not of this world. Beneath the fractured seal of the ancient, the door, a blast of overheated air hissed into the crevasse, carrying with it a chorus of distant keening, an otherworldly lament that resonated through the combs of every research outpost within 1,000 miles. Instruments surged, flickering between power surges and blackouts, as if the door's breach had awakened a latent field of electromagnetic turbulence. At Base Meridian, Admiral Herrera's voice cut through static. All teams, stand by for contact containment protocols now active. But containment meant nothing in the face of what lay behind that pallid threshold. As the ice walls collapsed inward, revealing a yawning chamber of obsidian metal and living frost, a low frequency hum permeated the aerotone so deep it registered as a tremor in the countenance bedrock sensors. Drones sent to map the interior returned ghostly renderings. A vast hall ringed with monolithic pillars, carved in relief, each etched with symbols that defied translation. The pillars pulsed in time with the hum, casting elongated shadows that writhed across the ice-laden floor. Microphones captured whispers in no known tongue life, urgent and beckoning. Dr. Nahitha's team, monitoring seismic feeds from the surface, recorded a series of spikes at precisely 9-minute intervals. Same cadence as the hollow tone. Each spike corresponded to an acoustic pulse from deep within the chamber. Yet, while the tone grew louder, amplifying in harmonic complexity, the ice around the entrance began to fracture, sending shards cascading down the slope. Researchers watched in horror as a secondary door, previously invisible beneath layers of frost, slid open with the grinding of metal and ice. Within that hidden alcove lay the source of the anomaly, a crystalline obelisk, 6 meters tall, suspended above the ground by a lattice of magnetized fields. Its surface shimmered with iridescent veins, alive with currents of energy that defied all known physics. Aurora lights danced across its facets, painting the cavern in spectral hues. When Colonel Morozov's final truth, resurfaced recorded on a secure black site server, described this object as the seed of a global resonance engine, capable of altering the planet's electromagnetic envelope. Now the seed was no longer dormant. At Vostok 2's long-dormant control center, lights flickered as power clawed its way from emergency generators back into the grid. Screens awakened, displaying system errors and unrecognized glyphs. The station's AI core, locked for decades, initiated a reactivation sequence labeled Protocol Omega. In the archive logs, Omega was described as the failsafe. If the resonance engine ever awakened, the world must be warned. Contact was attempted with the outside world, but the transmission was intercepted. Overwritten by a looping message, "We are the echo of the first signal." Back at McMurdo's satellite uplink, the Aurora Consortium's leaked code infiltrated uplink processors, redirecting global positioning system readings and warping map data. Planes lost course, icebreakers drifted off mission and military. Convoys reported phantom waypoints appearing on their displays. At that moment, every compass in the southern hemisphere spun uncontrollably, drawn toward the obelisk's field. Navigation systems worldwide pulsed with phantom coordinates: 6,633 S, 9,930 either heart of Princess Elizabeth Land, in a subterranean bunker beneath London. Members of the clandestine Five Eyes Council gathered, watching live feeds of the unfolding catastrophe. Ambassador Olmans's audio clip from the UN session flashed on their screens. Day of Reckoning, September 2025. With 3 months to prepare, emergency protocols were drafted to evacuate research personnel and scramble nuclear assets. But as satellite imagery of the ice shelf warped under the obelisk's influence, analysts realized no missile, no bunker, no shield could withstand a global field distortion on that scale. On the ice, storms converged with unnatural ferocity. Winds howled like banshees through fractured valleys. Snow fell upward in spiraling funnels of charged ice crystals. Instruments detected shifts in the Earth's rotational axis hundredths of a degree, but enough to trigger tectonic stresses. Glacial tongues cracked, calving mega-icebergs the size of cities. Coastal sensors worldwide warned of tsunamis riding beneath the tempest-churned seas. Humanity's veil of separation from the planet's raw power had torn. Yet amidst the chaos, a single voice remained calm. From a secure channel deep within the Vatican's secret archives, a rarely seen document emerged, handwritten by a 14th century alchemist and unearthed in the Codex Vaticana Subterranea. It spoke of an artifact called the Resonant Heart, buried beneath the southern pole in a time before recorded history. According to the Codex, the heart could align human consciousness with the planet's vibrational field, granting unity or total subjugation. The final passage warned, "He who masters the heart controls the dawn of man's true genesis." As the obelisk's light intensified, projecting beams that lanced through the ice dome above Site Omega, researchers recorded neurological anomalies. In nearby personnel visions of impossible landscapes, memories not their own, and an overwhelming sense of unity with something vast and indifferent. Some collapsed, convulsing in euphoric seizure. Others lay silent, eyes open, unblinking, as if something within them had gone forever quiet. And then, in the chamber's deepest core, the obelisk pulsed for a final time. The hum rose into a piercing note that shattered microphones and ruptured eardrums. In that moment, time itself seemed to bend. Seconds stretched into minutes, and the boundary between ice and ether dissolved. A flash of blinding light filled the cavern, obliterating the drones and cameras. When the glare subsided, only the obelisk remained, its crystalline form now fractured, bleeding streams of liquid light into the ice. No one at Base Meridian spoke as the silence settled. Then Admiral Herrera's voice, calm and resolute, broke through the static. "Secure all data. Prepare for Phase 2. The words hung heavy in the frozen air, a promise and a threat. Whatever lay beyond the heart's fracture, it would not stay buried. In the weeks that followed, automated sensors recorded the obelisk's diminishing glow, its emissions tapering like a dying star. Yet beneath the ice, at 82 S170E, seismic readings continued steady, rhythmic, unbroken. The resonance engine had not shut down. It had merely shifted frequency, and somewhere, deep within, the Antarctic abyss, the resonant heart awaited its next callers. In the winter of 1947, the massive armada of ships and aircraft that comprised Operation High Jump vanished beneath Antarctic squalls, only to re-emerge months later with their commander, Admiral Richard E. Byrd, weathered and wordless. Publicly, he lauded the mission's scientific triumphographic surveys, meteorological studies, emergency drills, but in private correspondence, now unsealed. Byrd spoke of landscapes that defied Earth's geometry and skies alive with unidentified craft. His 1950 memoirs hinted at vast caverns etched into the ice where magnetic compasses spun in dizzying circles, and where men reported hearing low-frequency pulses that seemed to emanate from the planet's core. But in a batch of letters released under FOIA in 2012, originally dated January 1948, Byrd's tone shifted from cautious optimism to urgent alarm. "There are structures down there," he wrote, "built by hands not our own, rising like cities from beneath the ice. They stand silent, watching." These revelations, buried for decades within cold storage vaults, ignited a network of researchers and fringe historians who scoured Admiral Byrd's flight logs for anomalies. Coordinates scribbled in the margins led to regions of the Antarctic plateau where seismic surveys recorded voids too vast to be natural. Witness statements from surviving crewmen described labyrinthine tunnels carved into the blue ice, their walls aglow with an otherworldly phosphorescence. As the 1950s gave way to the nuclear age, military engineers and intelligence services took note. Declassified cables show that the CIA dispatched reconnaissance teams to probe Byrd's impossible structures, drawing up plans for clandestine bases and geomagnetic census projects, later folded into the classified folds of HAARP and MKUltra research. Government reports stitched together fragments of Byrd's warnings with whispered accounts of Soviet incursions beneath the ice, fueling a subterranean mythos that spanned superpower grudges. By the late 1960s, rumors of Antarctic cities had wormed their way into pulp magazines and late-night radio shows. A handful of scientists who dared to question official denials found their careers stalled or their grants quietly revoked. Yet snippets of sonar data and grainy reconnaissance photos leaked onto the black market, showing rectangular depressions and straight-edged anomalies beneath the ice sheet patterns too precise to be carved by wind or erosion. In 1984, a retired Navy radar technician stepped forward with a battered reel of aerial footage from a classified overflight in 1955. The tape, stored in his attic for 3 decades, depicted a vast opening in the Ross ice shelf, ringed by vertical walls of ice unlike any crevasse. A metallic shimmer along the floor suggested structures half buried under millennia of snowfall. Before the footage could be authenticated, the technician's house burned to the ground. Through every decade, the origin story of an hidden secret took on new layers. UFO hunters claimed Byrd's fleet had stumbled into an ancient flying saucer hangar. Conspiracy authors linked the Admiral's warnings to pre-war Nazi expeditions rumored to have established a polar stronghold. Climate scientists, tracking ice melt in the 21st century, noted that retreating glaciers ominously unveiled shapes that matched the coordinates Byrd had scrawled in his private maps. In early 2015, seismic monitoring stations recorded powerful blasts deep below, dome sea echoes that matched the cadence of birds' original recordings of those unexplained pulses. By then, satellite interferometry revealed subsidence patterns forming perfect geometric arrays, each cell nearly identical in size and shape. Governments issued denials, claiming the signals were nothing more than subglacial water flow or tectonic shifts. But archival researchers found birds' own annotations. This is no earthquake. This is a heartbeat. As modern explorers, equipped with submersible drills and autonomous sensors, prepared expeditions to test these old coordinates, the legacy of Admiral Byrd's single voice, hesitant at first, then shrill with dread, remained the primary beacon. From his first warning of unknown armies beyond the ice barrier to his final plea for caution, the Admiral had set in motion a chain of inquiry that echoed into the present. Now, nearly 8 decades after Byrd's return from the origin story of Antarctica's buried enigma stands at a crossroads. Teams descend into shafts mapped by those obsolete flight logs. Lab doors bear locks stamped with top-secret cicadas of clearance. In hushed corridors, scientists prepare to breach thresholds first glimpsed in a dying admiral's fevered dreams. And as the first probes tremble against walls older than civilization, the question rigid as the ice around them remains: who built these structures, and for what inscrutable purpose? The ice holds secrets older than any living memory. A garbled transmission cuts through static, an emergency beacon blaring a location deep beneath the Antarctic plateau. Minutes later, the feed dies. No trace of the source, but archived metadata pins the origin to a satellite relay captured at 3:17 UTC on August 12, 1978. In that moment, a hidden world beneath the frozen surface was first glimpsed by instruments never designed for public eyes. Yet, when the footage reached government analysts, the official response was immediate and uniform. Nothing to see here. Antarctica is a continent dedicated solely to peaceful scientific research. Governed by the Antarctic Treaty of 1961, military activity is banned. Weapons testing is outlawed. No hidden agendas, just research stations dotting an endless white expanse. The United Nations and signatory nations reaffirm this doctrine at each decade's review conference. Officially, that is where the story ends. But in the recorded logs of a declassified NOAA satellite archive, the truth fractures. High-resolution imagery from 1978 reveals geometric structures at the edge of subglacial Lake Vostok, perfect rectangles and straight lines carved into the ice's underbelly, dimensions spanning hundreds of meters. Natural forces do not produce such rectilinear anomalies, and yet these images were stashed in a restricted folder, labeled Arctic Survey, test data, and buried beneath layers of bureaucracy. Simultaneously, a leaked email from 1995, authored by Dr. Helen Cartwright, a British seismologist attached to a multinational Antarctic expedition, described tremors beneath the ice like massive footsteps pacing beneath the crust. She wrote, her team recorded rhythmic pulses at depths exceeding 4,000 meters, patterns too regular to be geological quakes. The email trail ends abruptly. Cartwright vanishes from official records soon after. Here, the official version and the contradictions collide. On paper, the treaty stands unbroken. In practice, dark operations may lie dormant beneath kilometers of ice. Decades earlier, in the shadow of the Cold War, German geophysicist Dr. Klaus Reinhardt joined a Soviet East German survey. In 1982, his mission, drilled through the ice cap and sampled the bedrock. His final journal entry, recovered in fragments from a derelict base, describes the discovery of ancient corridors carved directly into the Antarctic bedrock tunnels stretching into the unknown. Walls etched with symbols resembling no known human script. Reinhardt's voice trembles on the page as he speculates on their origin: prehistoric civilization, extraterrestrial architects, or a lost chapter of Earth's history withheld by modern powers. 5 days later, Reinhardt disappeared without a trace. His drill site was sealed, and satellite feeds were ordered blacked out. Captain Maria Alvarez, a former Argentine naval officer turned conspiracy blogger, claims to have intercepted classified naval communiques referencing Operation Crystal Dawn. According to her whistleblower source, the mission orchestrated clandestine mining of meteorite fragments in the dry valleys, fragments believed to contain isotopes with anomalous properties. Transmissions hint at a race to weaponize these materials. Alvarez's blog post from February 2023 cites encrypted logs. Extraction team compromised. Meteorite shard exhibits unexpected energy emissions. Within days, Alvarez's website was taken offline, and her digital footprints scrubbed from public servers. But remnants persist. Surveillance camera captures show a convoy of unmarked snowcats hauling sealed containers across the Ross Ice Shelf night. Vision footage tinted green and red, as if recorded through modified optics. No flags, no identification. Their destination remains unknown. In 2019, Dr. Naomi Wyson, extremophile microbiologist stationed at McMurdo, filed a routine report on microbial life in sub-zero brine pockets. Privately, her field notes reveal the isolation of a novel microorganism exhibiting unprecedented metabolic rates when exposed to ultraviolet pulses. Weiss labeled her samples Project Helix. She prepared to transport them to Christchurch for further study, but the crate never arrived. Shipping logs record a sudden manifest alteration. The payload rerouted to an unknown military depot in New Zealand. Weiss's protests were met with silence, and her laboratory access revoked. Contrast that with the treaty's strict prohibition of resource exploitation. Scientific exchange is meant to flourish, yet here lies evidence of stolen research and top-secret agendas. The veil lifts just enough to reveal a deeper conspiracy. Antarctica, the world's last frontier, is not a sanctuary of peace, but a stage for hidden rivalries. Evidence of clandestine installations surfaces in the testimonies of satellite operators. In 1985, Soviet engineer Yuri Petrov reported infrared signatures beneath the ice thermal hotspots pulsing on a schedule. The coordinates align with those rectilinear shapes in the Vostok imagery. Petrov's superiors dismissed his findings as sensor errors. He resigned in protest and vanished from public view. Rumor places him in witness protection under a new identity. On the ground, explorers recount eerie encounters with ghostly lights, flickering in blizzard's illuminations, too uniform to be aurora australis, yet too distant to be anthropogenic. Acoustic sensors have captured low-frequency hums vibrating through the ice. Frequencies beyond human hearing, but recorded nonetheless. Engineers attribute them to seismic activity. But when matched against geological models, the data makes no sense. Each fragment's satellite shapes, seismic footsteps, vanished scientists, covert mining, infectious microorganisms, threads into a tapestry of hidden agendas. Did the Antarctic Treaty, conceived in the shadow of nuclear brinkmanship, accidentally create a loophole? Could the notion of peaceful research have been twisted into a cover for military research? biological experiments, and hyper-advanced engineering, the unanswered questions mount. Who carved the corridors discovered by Reinhardt? What powers animate the meteorite fragments in Operation Crystal Dawn? Why would biological samples be rerouted under military seal? What facility exists beneath Lake Vostok's frozen lid, humming with thermal activity? And above all, where is Dr. Naomi Weiss-Nowand? What became of Project Helix? Static crackles. The screen glitches, revealing raw footage of a research station suddenly abandoned. Coffee mugs still warm on a desk, instruments humming mid-calibration, and a lone file cabinet left open, its drawers empty. A redacted document flutters on the floor, stamped top secret, its contents blacked. Out save for the words Subject 19B, active. Then darkness consumes the frame. The ice holds its secrets close, but ripples of dissent travel upward. Whistleblowers emerge, logs leak, and the boundaries between science and subterfuge blur. As the world sleeps beneath the endless white, the conspiracy deepens. The world's attention focuses on the poles only when icebergs, calves or penguins gather. But beneath the silent surface, something far stranger unfolds. In the summer of 2002, a series of anomalous radio pulses echoed across the South Polar region. Amateur radio operator Samuel Jong, logging cosmic noise from his home in New Mexico, intercepted bursts of data binary sequences looping every 13 minutes. Jong's recordings, later posted to an obscure online forum, match fragments of military timestamps lifted from a 1998 NSA declassification leak. Those logs reference Project Blue Ice, a joint DARPA-SA initiative to probe subglacial anomalies by bouncing low-frequency radar through the ice. Officially cancelled for budgetary reasons, insiders whispered it continued in secret, rerouted under black budgets. In archived DARPA reports, leaked by whistleblower Oracle 7, engineers boasted of penetrating over 5 kilometers of ice with modulated ELF pulses, mapping cavities incredible in scale. One report describes a vast chamber at Queen Maudland, dimensions exceeding 300 meters in length, illuminated by an unnatural glow captured on thermal images. When questioned, program leads insisted the signature was merely subglacial hydrothermal vents, but such vents have never been found so far south or so uniform. Meanwhile, Operation Crystal Dawn's meteorite shards circulated within clandestine defense circles. A confidential memo dated May 14, 2005, obtained by investigative journalist Alina Ferrara, outlines plans to synthesize a compound dubbed Icefire from the fragment's rare isotopes. Testing occurred at a remote facility near McMurdo, in a wing sealed under martial law designation Alpha 7. Ferrara's sources describe personnel suffering mysterious radiation sickness and blood samples showing rapid cellular mutation. The project supposedly ended in 2008 after several fatalities. Official records list only routine meteorite analysis. Concurrently, a shadowy group calling themselves the Antarctic Access Collective AAC emerged on the deep web in 2011. Their manifesto claims to expose the frozen lies of global powers. In 2013, the AAC released GPS coordinates to an undisclosed site near the Gambutsov Mountains coordinates, later confirmed by independent adventurer Mira Lund to yield an underground complex. Lund's drone footage, transmitted live, shows a sprawling network of corridors carved in granite, lined with what appeared to be reinforced steel plating. Before she could stream further, her link was severed, and her drone fell inexplicably from altitude. These contradictions reverberate through the testimonies of last witnesses. Lieutenant Pavel Sidorov, former Russian military attaché stationed at Vostok Station in 2007, recounts in a 2018 interview hidden in a remote podcast. We were ordered to escort a convoy of yellow transport modules to a facility codenamed Monarch Deep. When we arrived, all communication was locked down. Even our satellite uplink was jammed by what they called a geoshield. Sidorov's audio, distorted by interference, is punctuated by distant clanks machinery, he suggests, working far below. Not all evidence comes from human sources. In 2016, sensors left by the International Seismic Array Network recorded a massive tremor under Dome Fuji. The magnitude registered 7.1 by standard measures, yet there were no tectonic plates here to shift. A follow-up UAV mission dispatched by JXA detected a plume of steam rising from a fissure. But when scientists descended, the steam had ceased, and all equipment malfunctioned. Their high-resolution video files show, for a split second, a column of faintly luminescent mist, then a power surge wipes the data. Amid these disjointed revelations, the life of Dr. Naomi Weiss remains the most unsettling chapter. In February 2020, she resurfaced in an encrypted message to a colleague. Project Helix awakened something down here. We can't simply study it. It studies us. The note included a corrupted image, file shadows, sliding across a petri dish, as though alive. Weiss disappeared again thereafter. Conspiracy theorists claim her fate ties to a secret UN tribunal convened in Wellington late that year to adjudicate biological breaches under the Antarctic Treaty. No official record of that tribunal exists. Back in the cold expanse, new players step into the fray. In March 2024, Chinese research vessel Zhulong 2 detected unexplained sonar reflections beneath the Wilkes Land crater, reflections shifting in formation, as if watching the ship pass overhead. The captain's log notes that several hours later, a distress beacon activated near the edge of the Aurora subglacial basin. A rescue team found only an empty ice camp tents intact, scientific gear operational, but scientists missing and unaccounted for. The beacon's serial number traces back to a classified Chinese South African Antarctic venture, purportedly focused on mineral surveys. And so, beneath treaties and treaties of treaties, beneath the ice that outwardly seems pristine, a hidden world thrives. Unauthorized bases operate in corridors carved by unknown hands. Classified programs map vast chambers where unnatural heat glows. Biological experiments breach the boundaries of life, wielding microbes that defy extinction in sub-zero brines. Meteorite fragments become the kernel of weapons research. The contradictions mount, eroding the official line that Antarctica is a scientific preserve. Tugging at one thread unravels a tapestry of global rivalry, black budgets, and potential contact with the impossible. Every new leak demands questions. Was the Antarctic Treaty's promise of peace a convenient veil? Did competing powers seize the continent's isolation to wield greater secrecy? Or did they awaken something primordial, lurking beneath layers of ice since time immemorial? In the depths where sunlight never reaches, the answers lie in for a trigger to set them free. But every probe, every expedition, risks more than frozen winds. It risks the wrath of ancient forces, or the ire of human powers determined to keep the truth buried. A final piece surfaces in intercepted communications between unnamed intelligence agencies. In May 2025, the message reads, "Subject gateways, coordinates attached. Activation protocol pending. No further context. The attachments, however, are unmistakable. Schematics of a subterranean mechanism at Plateau's station, with notches and gears impossible to date. Static returns. The screen flickers one last time, showing a silhouetted figure hunched over a console deep underground, bathed in red emergency lights. Their voice, modulated and distant, whispers through encrypted channels they've found. The gateway. Prepare for entry. Silence. Then the feed cuts. A cold cursor blinks on a hidden terminal. Lines of code cascade down the screen as the lone hacker known only by the alias Rhyme uploads a 500-page dossier to a shadowed corner of the dark web. The file, titled Project Iceworm 2, lands with a silent thud in the underbelly of cyberspace. At first glance, it appears mundane. Drilling logs, temperature readings, and maintenance schedules stamped from 2005. But as the pages turn, blueprints emerge, schematics for a vast subterranean complex burrowed beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet. Power conduits stretch for kilometers. Airlock doors seal off glittering chambers, every corridor mapped in meticulous detail. The source, an anonymous footnote, Sector 7, U.S. Department of Energy, and at its heart lies a crystalline substance called antacite, rumored to produce energy anomalies that defy conventional physics. In the hours that follow, security researchers, drawn by the dossiers, gravity begin to pass its contents. The first revelation: a network of boreholes drilled not downward, but laterally, carving an underground city beneath a plateau near the Transantarctic Mountains. The logs describe diamond-tipped augers fed by specialized drilling rigs capable of piercing ice and bedrock in a single pass. Sensors recorded geothermal gradients spiking to unnatural temperatures, proof, perhaps, that something within the rock was reacting. Engineers in hazmat suits are sketched alongside conveyor systems, labeled only as Extraction Suite, Module C. Hidden within the appendices are email exchanges between DOE officials. One memo, dated April 2005, reads, Subject antacite, yield projections. Initial sample tests indicate output exceeding predictions by 400%. Recommend escalating to test. Facility Bravo, ASAP. A response from a senior scientific advisor, signed only as H, counters with a warning. Containment protocols remain unverified. Any breach could compromise biological, geological, and geopolitical stability. Yet, less than a week later, a directive orders the relocation of Project Iceworm to a classified site at McMurdo Station under the guise of routine energy research, collaboration with NSF. Rumors swirl that antarcite is not merely a mineral, but a living crystal, one that resonates with electromagnetic fields to generate power autonomously. Whistleblower testimony, buried deep in the dossier, mentions phase shift emissions detected during early trials, bursts of microwaves that warped metal supports, fractured concrete, and induced seizures in lab animals. In one redacted incident report, a technician describes waking to find his hair standing on end, his vision trailing with afterimages of circuits flickering in mid-air. Meanwhile, satellite analysts notice an irregular grid of heat signatures radiating from beneath the ice cap. Thermal anomalies pulse in synchronization with the schematics power cycle theta. The coordinates align with a dormant Volkswagen-sized drill, hole sealed in 2007 after unexpected pressure events. No public record exists for why operations ceased that year, but internal logs, obtained by Rhyme, reveal a catastrophic Breach. Module F12 overheated, causing a seismic tremor registered as a 4.3 magnitude event. Emergency protocols triggered an automatic collapse of access tunnels, entombing personnel inside. The dossier's most chilling entry is buried in an encrypted PDF labeled Appendix Sigma. A series of Phillips head bolts are died, alongside concentric rings carved into the concrete floor, suggesting not just extraction, but containment. Handwritten notes in the margin: stabilize crystalline lattice. Do not exceed resonant threshold. Subject test 5 humans to. The last word is scrawled in urgency. Quarantine. No further explanation follows. Analysts connecting the dots recall a classified DARPA request from 2006 for enhanced covert energy sources, intended to power next-generation US stealth platforms. Could Antacite have been destined for military hardware cloaked beneath? Polar rovers. Other documents hint at clandestine shipping orders, sealed crates, bound for secret test sites in Nevada and Groom Lake. The irony is stark. An energy revolution conceived beneath treaties forbidding military activity in Antarctica, then spirited away to fuel the world's most aggressive weapons programs. As the leak circulates, intelligence agencies scramble to contain the fallout. The dossier is flagged, mirrored, then scrubbed from darknet nodes. But fragments persist in decentralized caches. A JPEG of a cracked crystalline fragment, glowing faintly under ultraviolet. A fragment of video showing yellow-suited scientists dragging bulky canisters into a snowcat convoy. An audio clip, distorted and looped, of a panicked voice shouting, "We can't shut it down." In homes and back rooms around the globe, conspiracy forums ignite. Some claim Antarctica is alien in origin, left by an ancient civilization buried beneath the ice, unearthed and weaponized by modern science. Others speculate it's an emergent life, former crystalline intelligence, seeding itself in Antarctic darkness, harvesting energy from Earth's core. Skeptics dismiss it as clever fabrication, a test of digital paranoia. Yet the dossier's technical precision and corroborating satellite data lend it a dangerous plausibility. For Dr. Naomi Weiss, who once handled the microbial oddities of Project Helix, the leak cuts dangerously close. In an intercepted voice message, she murmurs, "They think I don't know about Iceworm. They underestimate what I've seen." Her whereabouts unknown since 2021. Her warnings about crystalline contagions echo with new urgency. Could Antarctica's lattice structure harbor microbial life forms, feeding on energy pulses and spreading like an infection through ice veins? If so, the ramifications extend beyond energy or weaponry-threatening ecosystems. Worldwide, should a breach occur, international response is predictably muted. Governments publicly reaffirm the Antarctic Treaty's sanctity. Behind closed doors, special envoys convene in Geneva, Washington, and Beijing, trading sanitized briefs. A diplomat from the Antarctic Treaty Secretariat insists that any unauthorized energy extraction constitutes a treaty violation, but offers no details on enforcement. The silent chorus of denials rings hollow against the dossier's hard data. Late one night, underground journalists receive an anonymous packager battered hard drive labeled only MK. Inside, a single text file describes a contingency plan. Operation Whiteout, should Antarctica destabilize. Protocol mandates the detonation of thermobaric charges to collapse the subglacial complex, vaporizing the crystals and sealing the breach beneath 10 meters of ice. A final line reads, "Collateral geological damage accepted." As the world awakens to the essence of Project Iceworm 2, the question shifts from, is it real, to what will stop it? Beneath the Antarctic, treaty's thin veneer, a shadow war has been brewing, one powered by an energy source that could redefine human civilization or precipitate its end. Every alarm bell sounds unanswered. Deep in a fortified command bunker, a cryptic bulletin circulates. Critical iceworm activation imminent. Prepare global blackout contingency. No signature, no source, just a stark imperative. The lights dim, generators hum. Somewhere beneath the ice, the crystalline heart of anthracite pulses to life. Silence prevails. Then, in the darkness, the ice begins to creak. My name is Dr. Aisha Patel, and I was the meteorologist stationed at Dome C in August 2022. When I first arrived at the station in July, the routine was soothingly monotonous. Daily radiosondes, temperature logs, and the ceaseless ballet of katabatic winds sculpting the ice outside our windows. My work focused on measuring atmospheric profiles to refine global climate models. Never did I imagine that, one midnight, I would witness something that defied every scientific explanation I'd ever known. It was August 14th, 2020. To dusk had never truly fallen at Dome C, but the horizon dimmed to a permanent twilight. I was alone in the drill rig shelter, calibrating sensors for the next day's core sample run. The station's power grid hummed. Consistently, white LEDs tracing the interior contours of the metal hull. I remember thinking how serene it felt, how peaceful. At precisely 0:03, the lights flickered once, just enough to make my heart skip. Then came the hum, low and resonant, not mechanical but almost organic, vibrating through my bones. I dropped. My thermometer and the tip shattered. I froze, listening. The hum grew louder, and through the rig's reinforced window I saw it, a pillar of light, the color of deep indigo, spilling up from a crevasse maybe 50 meters away. I stumbled out, boots crunching on hardened snow, the hum amplifying with each step. My breath billowed in front of me like a ghost's veil. No cables fed that column, no bulbs, no lasers, nothing mechanical I could see. The light didn't radiate outward. It shot straight up, slicing through the low cloud deck like a blade. I raised my phone and began to record, hands trembling so badly the image blurred. The camera's sensors straining, I aimed it at the fish's lip. The indigo glow pulsed in perfect rhythm with the hum, one pulse every 2 seconds. The snow at the crevasse's edge melted in a circle, steam rising in spirals that glowed faintly against the dark ice walls. It smelled of ozone and something else, metallic and almost sweet. I felt the hair on my neck stand on end. I called to the night shift engineer, but the radio crackled nothing but static. The bunker's intercom was dead, alone. I watched the event unfold for nearly 2 minutes before the light extinguished in an instant, like someone flipping a switch. The hum ceased, and the world snapped back to cold silence. The only sign of what had happened was a shallow pool of slushy water at the crevasse's base and my phone, its battery drained to 0. Morning came, and I submitted my preliminary report. 0:03 local time. Anomalous electromagnetic event at GPS coordinates 756s, 12,321 E. I included atmospheric readings. Barometric pressure spiked during the event. Humidity plunged. The magnetic field recorded a sudden fluctuation of 0.1 T. I attached a still from my phone video, grainy but unmistakable, the fissure glowing with that impossible indigo. Within hours, Station Command summoned me. They confiscated my phone and erased every file related to the event. I watched the footage vanish, frame by frame, like ink dissolving in water. Orders arrived from higher authorities. All research, data pertaining to electromagnetic anomalies classified top secret, personnel to maintain strict confidentiality under national security protocols. I protested, of course. How can science advance if data is buried? I reminded them of the Antarctic treaties, spirit-open research, peaceful cooperation. They simply offered a curt smile and a reminder. This is an extraordinary event. Extraordinary events require extraordinary discretion. They reassigned me to weather balloon launches, rerouting my atmospheric data through secure military channels. I tried to log follow-up surveys in that sector, but my instruments malfunctioned, sensors burnt out, data corrupted. Even the GPS modules lost lock whenever I approached the crevasse's coordinates. Every attempt to probe further met with anomalies. Compass needles spinning, radios jamming, drone altitudes misreading by hundreds of meters. Days later, a routine medical check revealed elevated stress hormones and slight hearing loss consistent with exposure to a subsonic pulse. My hearing recovered, but the ear ringing remained as a ghostly echo of that hum. At night, I dream of indigo light, of ice walls vibrating like the body of some great creature sleeping beneath the continent. Colleagues who asked questions disappeared from my email threads. Supply shipments were redirected. My lodging was moved closer to the main station, away from the rig. I feel watched not by station staff, but by hidden eyes I cannot see. Every lens, every antenna, every sealed vent may be recording me. I don't know why the world must not learn of the indigo column. Perhaps they fear panic, or the weaponization of something they cannot control. But I recorded it. I remember the pulse. And I know, deep below the ice, something ancient stirs something that does not obey the laws we thought universal. This account, though in my own words, is but a fraction of what I witnessed in those few moments at 0:03 on August 14th, 2022. I fear that, if buried forever, the truth may vanish like that light gone in an instant, leaving only questions carved in frozen stone. My name is Lieutenant Pavel Sidorov, and the first was the Russian military attach assigned to Vostok Station in 2007. I still remember the biting cold that morning, minus 58 degrees Celsius, wind alive with static. I'd been at Vostok for 6 months, overseeing routine resupply convoys between our base and the remote drilling sites. Nothing prepared me for the orders that came down on April 3rd at 8:14. The communications officer handed me a sealed dispatch. Escort yellow transport modules to Monarch Deep. Full blackout protocols. Satellite uplink on standby only. Monarch Deep. I'd never heard the name before. The directive was terse. Secure the cargo. Ensure no unauthorized personnel approach. And maintain radio silence, except on encrypted channels. I roped in my small team, Sergei, Igor, and Elena, and we prepared our snowcats in the pre-dawn gloom. The modules were enormous, 90 centimeters in diameter, painted a matte desert tan with no markings except a cryptic hexagon insignia. They were heavy, sealed so tightly I couldn't guess their weight. We left base at 9:02, the convoy snaking across the plateau. The sky was crystalline, the horizon infinite. Twice we radioed in convoy proceeding before the chief of station cut us off. Silence all but emergency footmalls. From then on, every word in the cabin felt weighty. every click of the comms panel a potential violation. 3 hours into the trek, the weather closed in. A whiteout descended without warning. Visibility 0. We shifted to infrared scopes. That's when I noticed the terrain change. Subtle ridges in the ice, rectilinear patterns that didn't match natural snowdrifts. I pointed it out to Alina. She frowned but said nothing, her eyes shadowed with tension. At 12:47, we reached the coordinates. 7,827 S, 10,650 E. Under the swirling snow, a low cliff top dropped into a yawning trench in the ice. 2 single-file steel tracks led down into darkness. The modules were offloaded onto motorized sleds that matched the rails. No ramps, just gravity-fed descent. The air smelled metallic and damp. My boots echoed against steel. Wind howled beyond the open moor. I signaled Sergei to secure the perimeter. He set up 3 sentry points, weapons ready. Alina and Igor stood guard at the trench edge, while I led the first escort into the tunnel. Aided by headlamps, we descended about 30 vertical meters. The walls slick with condensation that dripped onto the tracks below. The temperature soared to a balmy +5 degrees Celsius by my gauge impossible this deep under the ice. At the tunnel's end, we emerged into a cavern carved from granite immense, cathedral-like. Massive steel girders spanned overhead, supporting a mezzanine level laced with catwalks. Overhead lights flickered amber, powered by cables snaked along the ceiling. I counted 25 anchored lines feeding into an unseen power source. No personnel were present. Only the modules we'd delivered sat on docking clamps, each connected by thick conduits to something buried beneath a grated floor. My comms crackled. A voice, distorted electronically, gave orders. Initiate phase 1. Ventilation to full. Sealed transport arch. I couldn't place the accent. American, British. Hard to tell through the encryption. Lights surged at my signal. Pneumatic doors hissed shut behind us, and vents roared to life. The air grew stale, tinged with the sharp tang of ozone. Then I noticed movement, not human, but mechanical. Below the grated floor, machinery churned cylinders, extending and retracting. Hydraulic pistons throbbing in a rhythmic pattern. The hum was low, yet resonant, resonating through my chest like a heartbeat. I glanced at Elena. Her jaw was clenched so tight I could see the strain in her neck. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red strobes danced across the girders. The modules glowed faintly from their conduit sockets pulsing with a sickly green light. Voice crackled over the intercom. Containment breach. Lockdown, tear alpha. The steel doors behind us clanged shut. Tracks in the ceiling shifted, lowering grates that cut off our exit. I barked orders. Sergei, override seals. Alina, check module readings. Igor, prep breach extinguishers. But the consoles before us displayed only segmented lines of code-no-readable data. Alina screamed, pointing at her monitor. The conduit feeding the nearest module had fractured, spraying sparks and hissing steam. The green glow intensified, crackling like live wire. Without warning, the floor shook hard. My helmet light swung violently as the cavern shuddered. Dust and grit fell from the ceiling. I lost my footing, gripping the railing. In the chaos, I glimpsed movement on the mezzanine shadows darting behind pillars. Figures in suits darker than the cavern's stone, carrying briefcases. They moved with purpose, ignoring us as they descended alongside the conduit. A deafening roar filled the space as the fractured conduit exploded, sending out a concussive wave that knocked me backward. I hit the grated floor with a jar that knocked the wind out of me. My ears rang. Through the smoke, I saw the modules stagger whether mechanical or organic. I couldn't tell, and then they stilled, the glow extinguished. Silence fell. The figures had vanished. The stench of burning metal hung heavy. I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline spiking. The vents clanked, cycling fresh air. The doors behind me hissed open. I motioned to my team. We retreated up the tunnel as fast as we could. I don't remember issuing the order, but we broke into a run, leaving the cavern behind. Outside, the snow had stopped. The convoy waited, engines idling. I ordered immediate return to base. No one spoke. The modules were gone, replaced by scorched tracks and a slick of oily residue. I radioed in, mission aborted, all personnel accounted, returned to Vostok. The station's reply was a flat, understood. In the debrief, I was told to categorize Monarch Deep as an abandoned mining facility. Any discussion of crystalline energy sources was stricken from my notes. My official log reads, encountered structural failure, forced evacuation. That was all, but I saw the glow. I felt that hum, and I know what lies beneath the ice is not geological. It's engineered. It's deliberate. My uniform bears medals of service, but I carry scars of a truth I cannot share. My name is Dr. Naomi Weiss, and I was the microbiologist at McMurdo Station in December 2019. I arrived in Antarctica in October of that year, eager to study extremophile communities in sub-zero brines. My focus was on organisms that thrived in the ice's final liquid pockets life at the planet's limits. I set up my lab in Hut Point, just beyond the main station, where a shallow cavern in the permafrost yielded samples unlike any I'd seen. It was routine work, or so I believed, until December 9th. That evening, the wind howled with the ferocity of a locomotive. The station's generators rattled beneath layers of ice, humming a steady bass note that lulled most colleagues to sleep. I stayed late, examining last week's samples, syringes of brine seeping from veins in the ice. Under the fluorescence microscope, I expected rod-shaped bacteria or standard halophiles. Instead, I found crystalline filaments, thin, lattice-like structures refracting the light like prisms. I leaned closer. The filaments pulsed faintly, contracting in microseconds. At first, I thought it was an artifact, a glitch in the fluorescence lamp. But when I switched off the illumination, the lattice glowed on its own, pale blue, as though powered from within. My heart raced. I recorded a time-lapse video, watching the crystal weave patterns across the slide, clustering into what looked like rudimentary cell walls. I secured the slide and retreated to the station's secure freezer for containment. My field notes, stamped and encrypted, describe a new genus, at least a new phase of life, and I codenamed it Helix Dzanovi. I attached a sample vial to the next flight out, bound for Christchurch's biosafety level for lab. The crate was locked, signed off by me at 1:23 local time. The next morning, I discovered the sample missing. The freezer's door latch was intact, but the vial was gone. I checked the log. It had been signed outsoaring through an unsigned digital signature that appeared to be mine. I alerted Station Command. My concerns were dismissed as procedural error. Check with logistics, they said. We'll track it on the manifest. 2 days later, I received an encrypted email from someone calling themselves Sector Oversight. The subject line read Helix Dzanovi inside. A single sentence. Containment is critical. Do not pursue. No signature, no footage. Those words, my skin crawled. Weeks of analysis told me Helix 19 thrived on electromagnetic fluctuations and grew rapidly under ultraviolet pulses. I ran controlled tests exposing cultures to UVA and UVB light. Within minutes, the lattice expanded, branching like mine shafts through the sample medium. Its growth rate doubled with each pulse. I saw it pumping energy absorbed from the UVN to its internal grid, generating heat and electrical potentials. I documented everything. My PowerPoint slides showed thermographic scans of the culture dish, trichonel fluorescence overlays, and charts of metabolic spikes. I sent them to 2 trusted colleagues via secure channels, planning to push for publication. That very night, the station's network was hit by a brutal cyber attack. Files scrambled, servers locked. My research folder displayed only a red screen, classified, access denied. I lost 4 weeks of workrow images, logs, even my original field notes. The backups were encrypted with a key I'd never seen. On December 18th, an unmarked C-17 skidded onto the ice runway in a storm. I was ordered to deliver any remaining Helix samples to a convoy of military-style snowcats waiting at Pegasus. No civilian scientists were to witness the transfer. I pleaded for transparency, citing research protocols. They told me national security takes precedence. They loaded the samples into hardened cases, then sealed the crates with an insignia I recognized from Project Iceworm 2's schematics, the same hexagon symbol. I demanded to know what would happen to Helix 19. A uniformed officer shook his head, eyes dead behind mirrored goggles. "You don't want to know," he said. "Since then, I've lived under surveillance. My lab access revoked. My movements logged. I no longer trust the night. I hear whispers over shortwave radio's mentions of bioshield tests and phase shift. Pathogens. I fear the lattice structure of Helix 19 was repurposed, merged with Antacite's crystalline framework for unknown experiments. In the deep freeze of my mind, I relive the sample's glow under the microscope, its patterns of life and light. I think of its hunger for electromagnetic energy and what it might become if unleashed. If Antacite's power source merged with a living helix, what nightmare would emerge? I cannot rest until someone hears this. I record my observations now in offline journals, buried in my mind, if nowhere else. I will not let Helix 19 vanish into secret bunkers or black budgets. My name is Myra Lund, and I am an independent polar explorer and drone pilot. This is what I saw in February 2013, deep in the Gambutsov Mountains. I'd spent months organizing my solo expedition to the Queen Maudland sector, funded by a handful of private donors intrigued by my promise to chart unvisited crevasse fields. By early February, I was operating a custom hexacopter drone from an outpost I'd built at 7518 S, 13227 E. My goal was simple: gather high-resolution, topographical data. What I found instead was a hidden gateway into something far more remarkably and frightening than I'd ever imagined. On February 14th, 2013, the morning air registered 35 degrees Celsius, with katabatic gusts gusting around 25 kilometers per hour. I rose before dawn to launch my drone over a series of linear ridges that had shown odd shadows in satellite imagery. The ice sheet in this region is famously featureless, so those dark lines piqued my scientific curiosity. After months of dead ends and bureaucratic roadblocks, I was determined to prove there was more to Antarctica than flat whiteness. By 6:15 local time, My drone was 3 kilometers north of camp, hovering at 150 meters above the surface. Its thermal scanner picked up a warm anomaly beneath a snaking crevasse area, barely 10 meters wide, but stretching for hundreds of meters. With a tap on my tablet, I switched to live HD feed. The crack in the ice yawned into darkness, too uniform to be natural. My heart thudded when I recognized straight edges lining the fissure's walls, as though someone had hollowed out a tunnel and then frozen it shut. I initiated a low pass, skimming the camera lens within a meter of the ice rim. The plumes of breath from deeper down shimmered faintly, like nerves firing in an ancient, sleeping beast. I recorded 2 minutes of footage before the drone's batteries signaled low power. I guided it back to camp, adrenaline coursing through my veins. That night, I played back the footage on a ruggedized laptop. The images were startling, geometric, right angles framing a pitch-black corridor, like the entrance to an underground cathedral. Excitement overcame caution. At 8:42, I bundled into my parka, strapped on crampons, and trekked to the site with my portable generator, floodlights, and a fiber-optic camera. The winds had calmed to a whisper by then, but I still radioed my base, heading to anomaly. 8 to 10 minutes. No one responded. The station was empty save for my own transmissions. When I reached the crevasse, I swept powerful LED panels across the ice walls. The light revealed more structure, what looked like carved stone blocks. Their surfaces smeared with frost but cut in perfect precision. I stepped closer, crawling onto the ice lip. I set up my camera scope and gently lowered it into the darkness. The cable tensed under its own weight as the lens descended 15 meters, 20 meters, then plunged into a vast void that swallowed. The light, suddenly, the feed went dark. My generator sputtered and died, though its fuel gauge read half full. My floodlights flickered once, twice, then cut out entirely. Silence encroached, broken only by the distant howl of wind. I felt a prickling on my skin, as if I were walking through static electricity. A low rumble vibrated up through the crevasse. Floor, a sound neither wholly mechanical nor wholly organic. My breath caught in my throat. Panicked, I fumbled for my radio. No response. Then, from the maw of darkness, a single beam of indigo light shot upward, thin but brilliant, like the blade of a colossal knife slicing ice. It lasted barely 3 seconds before vanishing, but in that moment, the wind shifted direction, carrying a scent of sulfur and scorched metal. I staggered back, heart hammering, and scrambled toward camp without looking down. That evening, I reviewed the scant evidence, a 3-second video clip. Temperature logs spiking by 12 degrees Celsius at depth, and a weather anomaly never before recorded in my records. The line between sea level atmospheric pressure and the pocket beneath the ice had flipped an inversion I still can't explain. I reported my findings to a handful of academic contacts. Their reactions ranged from skeptical to alarmed. One glaciologist warned me to stop claiming that any attempt to explore further would be reckless and potentially deadly. A satellite imaging specialist asked for coordinates, promising to cross-reference historical data. 2 days later, I received no follow-up. My emails went unanswered. Weeks after my return to civilization, I learned about the Antarctic Access Collectives. 2013 leak. GPS coordinates to an underground complex in Gambutsov, verified by thermal imagery. They cited an adventurer named Lund, whose drone footage captured the entrance. I realized they were referring to me. My video had been reposted on the AAC's forum, stripped of my name, repackaged as incontrovertible proof of hidden bases beneath the treaty's frost. Then came the threats. Anonymous messages appeared on my social media, lines of code warning me to stay quiet, or else the ice will swallow you next. My funding evaporated. My equipment was mysteriously lost in transit. A shipment of replacement drone batteries never arrived. My phone rang at odd hours silence on the other end. To this day, I keep one copy of the original footage on a secure drive, tucked inside an encrypted container. I visit the site when I can, though the winds are fierce and GPS often misleads me by hundreds of meters. I feel the pull of that corridor, beneath the ice, calling to something deep and primeval. I don't know who built those walls or why. All I know is what I saw. An engineered void hidden beneath kilometers of ice, activated by forces beyond human comprehension. My name is Myra Lund, and I swear what lies beneath that crevasse is neither natural nor benign. And until someone comes forward to explain, I will keep returning, camera in hand, to shine a light into that frozen void. Asterisk. My name is Samuel Jong, and I was an amateur radio operator in New Mexico when I first intercepted the Antarctic pulses in August 2002. I'd been fascinated by radio since I was a kid, scavenging electronics at garage sales and building crystal sets in my parents' garage. By 2002, I had a modest shack filled with transceivers, an SDR receiver, and a homemade loop antenna. My routine involved scanning the 3 to 30 MHz spectrum for cosmic noise, amateur bursts, or anything unusual. Late one evening, just past midnight, local time on August 8th, I tuned to 5.6 MHz an odd frequency for cosmic chatter and caught the faintest hint of a patterned transmission. At first, it sounded like static, white noise peppered with clicks. I assumed atmospheric interference until I realized the clicks repeated in a consistent loop 13 pulses, then a half-second pause, then 13 more. Intrigued, I switched to my recording setup, a DAT recorder hooked directly to the SDR output, time-stamped by a GPS-synced clock. Over the next 3 nights, I captured dozens of 10-minute snippets of those pulses, each recording identical to the last. My logical side wondered if it was an Earth-based beacon, perhaps a military radar bouncing off the ionosphere, but at dawn I found references to similar bursts in declassified NSA logs leaked online. An operation named Blue Ice, dated 1998, involving ELF radar pings bounced beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. Most amateur sleuths dismissed it as legend, but the timing matched. The logs described modulated ELF pulses designed to map subglacial cavities. No public documentation confirmed it continued after 98. Yet here, I was in 2002, hearing something very similar. I spent weeks analyzing the recordings, the pulse interval of 13.2 seconds, and the frequency drift suggested a non-random source. I plotted the signal-to-noise ratio against geomagnetic indices, solar flux, anything I could correlate. Nothing fit. The burst strength spiked precisely when auroral activity was minimal, eliminating solar events as the cause. Late in August, I posted my findings on a small forum frequented by fellow radio hobbyists. I uploaded audio clips and a short write-up titled Antarctic Anomaly, 13-second loop on 5.6 MHz. Responses ranged from excited speculation to outright dismissal as a hoax. Undeterred, I shared the raw DAT files via FTP, inviting anyone to verify my data. 2 weeks later, I received an anonymous email. The subject line simply read, "Stop listening." The body contained a single line. "You're reading the wrong frequencies. Shut it down." No signature. Beneath the text was a blurred JPEG of my loop antenna with a red circle and slash superimposed. My heart pounded. Was someone watching me? The email's header pointed to a compromised server in suburban Chicago. Then came the phone calls. At first, heavy breathing, then a voice cold asking if I knew the meaning of operational security. I hung up. The calls stopped after 3 nights. My anxiety peaked when I noticed unmarked vehicles parked near my driveway, their engines idling at odd hours. I never confirmed they were watching me, but the fear was real. I considered deleting all my recordings, pretending the whole thing was a glitch. But the data was too compelling. I reached out to a journalist I trusted, sharing the raw DAT files and my analysis. He promised to investigate. 2 days later, his website was hacked, his articles scrubbed. He emailed me one last time. "Be careful, some things beneath the ice don't want to be found." Despite the intimidation, I refused to be silenced. I enhanced the audio in Audacity, filtering out noise and isolating the pulses. I converted the recordings into spectrograms that revealed faint subharmonic tones beneath the main burst, frequencies used in deep Earth radar mapping. My conclusion: an active ELF facility, still operating in secret, probing the subglacial voids of Antarctica. In late September, I contacted a university lab that specialized in seismology. I sent them a spectrogram and asked if they could cross-reference it with ground sensors. Days later, they forwarded me an email from their dean. Cease and desist. National security concern. No further explanation. By October, I began losing sleep. Every crackle on the radio set felt like a warning. I noticed friends drifting away. Some stopped responding to emails. Others refused to discuss the topic. It was as if my world was closing in, pushing me to abandon my pursuit. Yet, I had the recordings. I had the spectrograms, and I believed the world needed to know. In November, I leaked a compressed archive .files, spectrograms. My notes sent to a peer-to-peer network. I named it Blue Ice Reloaded. Within hours, it spread to conspiracy forums, darknet channels, and eventually mainstream tech blogs. The fallout was immediate. Conspiracy headlines, heated debates, even a brief mention on a late-night news program. But within days, every reference vanished. Articles were deleted, the news clip pulled offline, and takedown notices flooded. The internet. Now, 2 decades later, I still monitor 5.6 megahertz. I've upgraded my equipment, but the pulses have never reappeared on my setup. Some nights, I wonder if I imagined it, all until a gentle click crackles through my headphones, a distant echo of something calling from beneath the ice. I save the clip, unsure if I'll ever publish it again. They tried to scare me off, but I know what I heard. Beneath the frozen continent lies a network of technology, probing, mapping, perhaps concealing, more than we can fathom. And though the world may forget, I will never stop listening. My name is Captain Maria L.V. A.R.E.Z., and I was serving as a communications officer aboard the Argentine icebreaker Ara Almirante Irizar when I intercepted the Operation Crystal Dawn. Transmissions in January 2023. I'd rejoined the Navy in late 2021 after a stint in civilian maritime logistics. My specialty was encrypted comms. And in 2022, I was assigned to the Irizar for the annual resupply run to the various scientific bases on the Antarctic Peninsula. By January 2023, we were en route to Potter Cove near King George Island, ferrying everything from lunar soil simulants to drilling augers. My station was the radio room, a cramped compartment lined with racks of satellite transceivers and HF-VHF gear. Nights were long. The polar summer's perpetual light blended days into one continuous shift. On January 17th, 2023, around 2:45 UTC, I noticed an anomalous data burst on the HF link we used to relay meteorological updates to USH. The frequency flicked in and out of our preset channel. It wasn't aurora static, nor the usual atmospheric crackle. The pattern struck me as two precise bursts of digital packets, each lasting exactly 0.27 seconds, followed by a pause of 0.73 seconds. I logged the anomaly and tuned the receiver across adjacent bands. The signal reappeared 2 hours later, identical in form and modulation. By January 19th, I was convinced this was more than a stray relay. I recorded 24 hours of raw IQ data and ran it through our onboard decryptor. The machine spat out fragments. Extraction team. Shard M signature. Risk of critical breach. But the decryption was incomplete to many layers of cipher. My training kicked in. I rerouted the raw feed into a custom Python script TAN, old hobby of mine from Naval College days, to test frequency hopping patterns. Over the next 48 hours, I isolated 10 separate subchannels, hopping across 8 kHz of spectrum every 2 seconds. The breakthrough came when I cross-referenced the timing with our GPS sync logs. The bursts coincided with our crossing of the Bransfield Strait that gave me approximate bearing data. I plotted the bearings on my navigation chart and found they intersected near the Dry Valley's edge, over 1,200 kilometers inland. My pulse quickened. If these were truly the clandestine coms of Operation Crystal Dawn, they pointed not to the peninsula but deep into uncharted ice, where no civilian ship could follow. I shared my findings with Lieutenant Commander Esteban Ruiz, my department head, under secure protocol. His reaction was calm but grave. He ran his own decryption routines and confirmed the keywords Dawn, meteorite recovery, power threshold unstable, warned me Maria, jury outside your clearance. This is classified at levels beyond our remit. Document everything, then drop it. I couldn't. Over the next week, I pieced together a rough message log. A team had drilled a lateral shaft 500 meters north of the Ross ice shelf's edge, targeting meteorite fragments believed to contain high-energy isotopes. The transmissions detailed a containment failure, apparently. The shards began emitting uncontrolled electromagnetic pulses that compromised the nearby drilling rig's guidance gyros. Personnel were ordered to evacuate under a code black directive, leaving all but 2 canisters behind. The final packet I captured read: Extraction abort. Seal grid. Authorization. Sector 7 DO. Each fragment made less sense on paper than in practice. Why would the US Department of Energy be leading a covert expedition on Antarctic's sovereign ice? Why involve a classified code name when the treaty expressly forbids energy exploitation? And most disturbing, if these shards could destabilize a rig's electronics from half a kilometer away, what might they do to a research station's power grid door, a passing submarine's sonar? Late on January 26th, I attempted to triangulate a live burst using our satellite uplink as a relay. I recorded real-time metadata from the ship's location and the signal strength. The calculations placed the source beneath a remote plateau, near Lake Frixelfar, from any documented base. I drafted a covert report and encrypted it, intending to send it through Argentine naval intelligence channels. But before I could transmit, the ship's comms chief intercepted my files. Under orders from Buenos Aires, all my logs were wiped. I was told the matter fell under international security protocols, and that further action was unnecessary. I protested, appealing to the mantle of scientific transparency enshrined in the Antarctic Treaty. Instead, I was reassigned to surface navigation duties, my radio privileges curtailed. My workstation was moved to the bow, away from the encryption racks. They told me it was procedural. I knew it was punitive. For weeks, I flew under the radar, listening on borrowed gear, logging bursts on my personal SDR back home. In May 2023, I published an anonymous blog post detailing my experience, citing source, personal logs of Ara Irazar, comms officer. It made a small splash among conspiracy forums, but mainstream outlets ignored it. Days later, the Argentine Navy issued a brief statement. No unofficial operations exist. The ARA Irazar operates solely under scientific mandates. My post disappeared from several web archives, and I began receiving veiled warnings. Stop stirring the ice. Now, back on dry land, I'm haunted by that rhythmic pulse and the echo of word fragments in my head. I replay the decryption logs countless times, hoping for a clue I missed. The meteorite shards these Antarctic fragments could rewrite physics, but at what cost? And who among the global powers will dare to harness their power? I still scan the HF bands at midnight, waiting for a glitch in the static that matches those precise 0.27-second bursts. I know I won't hear them again while they remain guarded beneath kilometers of ice, but the knowledge is there, etched into my mind, and I refuse to forget. What if those old, rusty symbols weren't carved by ancient peoples, but by people fighting a hidden war under the ice? Skeptics point their lenses skyward, insisting that what appears monumental is nothing more than nature's sleight of hand. In the frozen silence of Antarctica, ice acts as a prism, bending light and sound in unpredictable ways. Pilots flying over the Shackleton Range have reported ghostly apparitions, shadows stretched into angular forms by sunlit horizons and shifting air currents. In controlled wind tunnel experiments at the University of Calgary, researchers showed how diamond dust, a suspension of microscopic ice crystals, can scatter thermal imager beams into rectilinear patterns. According to the Journal of Glaciology's 2021 study by Smith et al., anomalies near subglacial Lake Vostok coincide precisely with temperature inversions and refraction layers in the lower stratosphere, suggesting frozen particles in the air. Not clandestine installations are behind many structures. They argue that sonar surveys, the bedrock of sub-ice mapping, are equally prone to deception. Sound waves, they claim, reverberate through stratified layers of snow, fern, and ice, generating echoes that defy simple interpretation. Laboratory analogues have shown that minor density variations can split a single pulse into multiple returns, producing phantom reflections that fall into grids or passageways. What conspiracy hunters hail as corridors carved by human hands, debunkers call artifacts illusory lines traced by seismic ripples, not by excavation. Likewise, Antarctica itself may be a misreading of meteorite-rich sediments when scanned at certain frequencies. Ordinary extraterrestrial detritus can mimic crystalline lattice, sparking legends of power-generating minerals where none exist. On the ground, Sensors falter in extreme cold. Thermal cameras freeze up, pixels disconnect, and reconstructed footage flickers with voids. Skeptics maintain every heat anomaly attributed to subglacial power grids or heated chambers can be traced to equipment malfunctions, loose wiring, frigid solder joints, or condensation on lenses. In a 2018 Dome Fuji expedition, an entire series of supposed lava tube signatures turned out to be a faulty thermal connector, not evidence of an underground reactor. Beyond technology lies human fallibility. Isolation warps perception. Officers stationed for months in white nothingness become prone to pareidolia, the mind's habit of finding patterns in randomness. A low-ranking communications specialist at McMurdo admitted anonymously to filing multiple redacted activity reports simply to break the monotony. What starts as routine miscommunication can metastasize into tales of secret bases, especially when filtered through forums hungry for conspiracies. Against this chorus of reason, believers marshal their own evidence. They point to late-night transmissions intercepted by New Zealand satellite engineers in 2019 bursts of encrypted data beamed from Antarctic coordinates that vanish upon public release. Logs reveal thermal scans peppered with data voids, as though entire wedges of the continent have been digitally erased. In 2022, South African patrols near the Gambutsov Mountains recorded ribbons of anomalous heat slicing through sub-zero air, as if something alive breathed beneath the ice. Believers also note the deafening silence of formal inquiry. Why has no peer-reviewed paper ever tackled the 1978 satellite shapes? Why do every FOIA request and treaty inspection report return blacked-out bullet points instead of clear denials? To them, these omissions are not mistakes, but deliberate gaps. They see Antarctica partitioned not by flags and charts, but by firewalls and code words, Sector 7, Alpha 7, Monarch, deep names that surface only in classified memos and whistleblower snippets. Testimonies lend weight to the mystery. A retired Chilean patrol officer, speaking under a pseudonym, recalls a 2017 trek. His thermal imager flickered as the team crossed an unremarkable plain, then split into parallel lines, revealing a corridor beneath the ice. Cameras died, radios went silent, and when reinforcements arrived hours later, the trench had vanished under a fresh snowdrift. Official reports chalked it up to extreme weather. Believers call it a cover story. In 2020, a New Zealand satellite engineer witnessed a subglacial chamber bathed in an otherworldly glorus of lights receding into darkness. Outlines too precise for ice flows. He captured raw frames before the system self-erased them, only to have his security clearance revoked and workstation remotely wiped hours later. Believers see the Antarctic Treaty's oversight mechanisms, environmental inspections, data sharing protocols, annual meetings as layers of bureaucracy easily manipulated by determined states. They argue that labeling a clandestine facility, scientific research, filing adjusted annual reports, and scheduling inspections during the long winter affords ample cover. It's a loophole wide enough to slip an entire underground complex through. Online communities, on our ice files and our conspiracy dissect every public document. Shipping manifests, satellite burst logs, personnel rotations. They trace crates labeled lab equipment, McMurdo, 2 secret sites in South Africa and Nevada. They note shipments arriving days before recorded tremors and power cycling events coinciding with personnel changes at Vostok Station. To them, the dots connect into a silent narrative of sub-zero skullduggery. Yet even believers admit uncertainty. Refraction effects can, in rare alignments, distort genuine formations. Some thermal anomalies may stem from untapped geothermal vents, not hidden reactors. And theories of living Antarctic crystals, while compelling, lack a single verified sample in the public domain. Every vial is said to have been confiscated or misplaced under military seal. In that shadowy space between visible data and classified redactions, imagination and reality blur. As summer's thaw peels back ancient layers of ice, dozens more puzzles emerge. Strange craters appear near the Antarctic, mountain circular depressions impossible to explain with recent meteor impacts. Explorers uncover rusted artifacts etched with undecipherable glyphs, half buried in moraine. Drone pilots on deep forums report new rumors of vast cavitation networks stretching for hundreds of kilometers, complete with widened tunnels and cavernous halls. You, sub-ice hunter, are ice files. Are these footprints of a lost civilization, whispers of a modern Black Ops facility, or something else entirely? Every answer seems to birth another enigma. Above it all, the white continent remains an open canvas, its surface both reflecting nature's raw majesty and hiding layers of human and, possibly, inhuman machinations. In the polar twilight, the aurora shimmers like cosmic circuitry, reminding us that the natural world can outshine any human design. And somewhere in those dark depths, beyond the reach of treaties, beyond the sight of satellites, the cold heart of Antarctica keeps its secrets, waiting for the next crack in the ice to reveal its truth. Thanks for watching MysteryCon. If this left you with more questions than answers, you're not alone. Drop your theories in the comments, and if you've seen something strange, say something, like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss what they don't want you to know. Until next time, keep watching.